Hello there. Welcome to the Technovation podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Welcome back to the Daily Update. Breaking news from the markets. We'll analyze the key trends right after this. Our topic for today is full stack software development.
Have you ever really thought about what it takes to build a whole website or app? You know, from the button you click all the way to the stuff happening behind the scenes. It's a path a lot of people are curious about, and today, well, we're going to try and clear things up a bit. We're looking closely at a guide called The Beginner's Roadmap to Becoming a Full Stack Developer. We're basically treating this as a shortcut, trying to figure out the key skills and the decisions you need to make to build whole applications.
Yeah, exactly. Our goal here is to pull out the really important bits from this roadmap. Think of it less like a list and more like understanding the why behind each step. So you should leave this really knowing what being a full stack developer actually involves, how all those pieces connect.
Okay, so let's start right there. What is a full stack developer exactly? The roadmap uses this term bridge builder, which I think is quite helpful.
It really is. Being a bridge builder, it means you're connecting what the user sees and interacts with, that's the front end, with all the, let's say, complex machinery running in the back end. And that immediately brings up a question, right? What are these different parts?
Right, so the roadmap breaks it down into three main areas. First, there's the front end, or the client side. That's everything you see and touch on a website or app. Buttons, forms, menus, the whole visual experience. It's built right there in your browser. Then you've got the back end, the server side. This is like the engine room. It handles things like databases, security, user logins, the core logic of how the application works. It talks to the front end through APIs.
That's the powerhouse, doing the heavy lifting.
And the third piece, which is super important, is DevOps. This is all about deployment, making sure the application actually runs smoothly out there on the internet. So things like cloud servers, making sure it can handle lots of users, monitoring it.
And putting it all together, you see how a full stack developer is really involved in the whole life cycle. From the first idea, sketching it out, coding it, and then actually getting it live and keeping it running. It's quite a scope.
Before we even talk about specific coding languages, the roadmap really hammers home the need for a solid foundation. So for someone just starting out, what does that actually mean? What's this groundwork?
It's about understanding the world your code lives in, like how the web actually works. You need to get your head around basic concepts like HTTP, what DNS does, the whole client-server relationship. These aren't just buzzwords. Knowing them helps you solve problems later. Then there's command line basics, just being comfortable navigating and running things in that text interface. Super useful.
Okay.
And maybe the most crucial bit, version control with Git and GitHub. I mean, this is fundamental for working on any project, especially with others.
Yes.
Tracking changes, rolling back mistakes, collaborating, it's essential.
And the roadmap actually suggests places to learn this stuff, right? Like FreeCodeChamp for Git or Codecademy for how the internet works. That's really helpful for you, the learner, because you know exactly where to start looking. It takes some guesswork out.
Definitely. It gives you concrete starting points.
All right, foundation's down. Let's get into what often feels like the fun part for beginners, the front end. Building the stuff you can see.
Yeah, this is where things often click visually. So, the roadmap lays out the three core technologies here. First up is HTML. It's not just about putting text on a page, it's the actual structure. The roadmap mentions semantic tags, things like header, footer. Using these isn't just neat, it's important for accessibility and how search engines see your site. Makes your code more professional too.
So the skeleton.
Exactly. Then you have CSS, which is all about the styling, colors, fonts, spacing, borders, the look and feel. But crucially, it's also about layout. Mastering things like Flexbox and Grid is key. And responsive design, making sure your site looks good and works well on phones and tablets, not just desktops. That's non-negotiable these days.
Right, making it look good everywhere.
And the third piece is JavaScript. This is what brings the page to life, makes it interactive. You need to learn the basics, variables, functions, loops, conditionals. And then really importantly, things like DOM manipulation, changing content on the page dynamically, and event handling, like responding when a user clicks a button or types something.
Okay, so HTML for structure, CSS for looks, JavaScript for making it do things.
That's the core.
And then there are tools and frameworks built on top of these.
Yes, absolutely. The roadmap highlights React.js as Well, probably the most popular front-end framework right now, very much in demand.
Okay.
But it also mentions others you might explore later, like Vue.js or Angular. And for CSS, tools like Tailwind CSS or Bootstrap can help you style things faster.
Got it. And how do you practice this? The roadmap suggests projects.
Yeah, practical application is key. It suggests things like building your own personal portfolio site. That's a classic starter project. Or maybe a to-do list app or a simple weather app that fetches data from somewhere online using a public API.
Right. Build something real.
Exactly. And that raises a good point. How do you know when you're ready to move on? It's less about knowing everything and more about feeling, comfortable with those core ideas. Can you build a simple interactive thing?
Makes sense. Okay, so once you're feeling reasonably good about the front end, the roadmap points towards the back end, the engine room. And here, the first big choice seems to be the programming language.
That's right. And the key advice is pick one to start with. Don't try to learn them all at once. So options include JavaScript, using Node.js and Express. This is really popular, especially if you already know JavaScript from the front end. It lets you use the same language everywhere. Pretty efficient.
Okay, stick with JavaScript.
Or there's Python, with frameworks like Django or Flask. Python's known for being quite readable, often good for beginners.
Heard that too.
Then you have languages like Java, C#, or maybe Go. These are often used in bigger companies for larger or more complex systems. Each has its own strengths, its own ecosystem.
So choose one and stick with it for a while.
Pretty much. And regardless of the language, there are core concepts you'll need to grasp, like designing REST APIs. That's how different parts of your application, or even different applications, talk to each other and exchange data.
Okay, the communication rules again, but for the server side.
Exactly. And authentication, how you handle user logins, keep track of who's logged in using tokens or sessions. Security is paramount here.
Right.
And understanding middleware, which are like functions that handle requests as they come into your server and before responses go out, lets you add logging, authentication checks, that kind of thing.
Got it. And databases are central to the back end, right?
Oh, absolutely essential. That's where your application's data lives. The roadmap mentions two main types. SQL databases, which are relational, like PostgreSQL or MySQL. Think tables with rows and columns.
The traditional kind.
Yep. And NoSQL databases, often document-based, like MongoDB. They store data more flexibly, maybe like JSON objects.
Okay, different ways to store data.
The really crucial skill, though, regardless of the type, is learning the CRUD operations. Create, read, update, delete. How you actually interact with the data in the database from your code. That's fundamental.
And again, the roadmap suggests projects here.
Yes, things that force you to use these concepts, like building a blog app where users can sign up, log in, create posts that involves authentication and database interaction, or a notes app that saves notes to a database, or even creating your own API, maybe one that serves up information about movies or books you've stored.
So really solidifying those back-end skills through building.
That's the idea.
Okay, this is where it gets really exciting for me. The full stack integration, bringing the front end and the back end together.
Yeah, this is where you see the complete picture emerge. It's about making those two halves talk to each other effectively. So practically, it means things like connecting your React front-end code to your Node.js Express back-end code.
How does that actually happen?
Well, you'd typically use tools in your front-end JavaScript, like the built-in Fetch API or a library like Axios, to make requests to the API routes you defined in your backend.
Okay. So the front end asks the back end for data or tells it to do something?
Precisely. And the backend then processes that request, maybe interacts with the database, reading data, saving data, and then sends a response back to the front end. You're also handling things like authentication across both sides. So when a user logs in on the front end, the back end verifies them, maybe sends back a token, and the front end stores it to make authenticated requests later.
Right, managing that whole user session.
Exactly. It's about that complete flow.
Yeah.
Data going from user input through the front end to the back end, into the database, maybe back out again, and displayed to the user.
And this lets you build much more complex things, presumably. The roadmap mentions some examples.
Oh yeah, now you can tackle projects like a basic e-commerce app. You'd have a front end showing products, a back end managing inventory and orders in a database, handling a shopping cart, maybe even integrating with a payment processor API.
Wow, okay.
Or a social media, clone profiles, posts, likes, comments, all requiring front end display, back end logic, and database storage.
That sounds like a serious project.
It is, but it uses all the skills. Or even a real-time chat application using something called WebSockets, where messages appear instantly without you having to refresh. That requires tight integration.
So building these integrated projects really shows you understand the whole stack, right?
Absolutely. It proves you can connect all the dots. You're not just a front-end dev or a back-end dev anymore. You're architecting the whole system. That's a huge step up in capability.
Okay, you've built this amazing full stack application, but it's still just on your computer. The next step is getting it online, DevOps and deployment. The roadmap calls this the final step.
Or maybe the final mile is a better way to put it, because it's crucial. Your work isn't done until people can actually use it. So the roadmap talks about different ways to deploy. For just a front-end site, maybe your portfolio, there are platforms like Netlify or Vercel that make it super easy, almost drag and drop sometimes.
Okay, simpler for front end only.
Yeah, for full-stack applications where you have both the front-end and the back-end server running, you need different services. The roadmap mentions Render, Railway, maybe Heroku, although its free tier changed recently. These platforms are designed to host both parts.
Gotcha. So places that can run your server code too.
Exactly. And then for more complex needs or bigger applications, you might look at the major cloud providers, AWS, Google Cloud, GCP, Microsoft Azure. They offer a ton more services and control, but also have a steeper learning curve.
Right, the big players.
A key thing the roadmap points out is using version control, like GitHub, throughout this. You push your code changes to GitHub, and often these hosting platforms can automatically deploy your application whenever you push an update.
Ah, so it streamlines the process.
Hugely, which leads into CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration, and continuous deployment. This is about automating the testing and deployment process. So every time you push code, it automatically runs tests, and if they pass, it deploys the new version. It's really efficient and reduces errors.
That sounds pretty advanced.
It can be, but even basic CI/CD is becoming standard. The roadmap also mentions containerization with Docker. It calls it optional but powerful. Docker lets you package your application and all its dependencies together in a container so it runs exactly the same way anywhere on your machine, on a colleague's machine, on the server. Really useful for consistency.
Okay, lots of options there. What are the beginner goals for deployment then?
The roadmap suggests keeping it simple at first. Goal 1, just get your portfolio site deployed using something like Netlify. Goal 2, deploy your first full stack application, maybe using a free or cheap tier on Render or Railway. Just experiencing that process of making something live is invaluable.
Get something out there. Makes sense. Now, the roadmap also stresses that coding isn't the only thing. There's professional growth too. Where does that start?
It really starts with showcasing your work. The roadmap emphasizes building a portfolio. Have at least, say, 3 to 5 solid projects you've built hosted on GitHub, and then create your own personal developer website where you can present these projects nicely, talk about your skills. It's your online resume, basically.
No, show, don't just tell.
Exactly. But beyond that, there are the so-called soft skills, which are actually incredibly important. The roadmap points out having a strong problem-solving mindset. You'll hit roadblocks constantly. How do you approach figuring them out?
Right, resilience.
And collaboration. Can you work well with others? That includes things like pair programming, using GitHub effectively for teamwork.
Reviewing code. Teamwork makes the dream work, as they say.
Yeah. And clear communication. This is huge. Can you explain technical ideas to people who aren't technical? Can you document your code well? Can you articulate problems and solutions? Super valuable.
It's not just about talking to computers.
Not at all. Then, thinking about getting a job, the roadmap gives some direct advice. Learn common interview questions, especially around data structures and algorithms. They come up a lot.
The dreaded algorithm questions.
That'd be tough, yeah. So practice. Use platforms like LeetCode or HackerRank to hone those skills. And then be proactive. Actively look for internships or maybe small freelance gigs. Getting that first bit of real-world experience, even if it's small, makes a big difference.
Okay, so build projects, practice problems, get experience.
That's the core loop for job readiness. And finally, the roadmap touches on what happens after you become a full-stack developer. It emphasizes continuous learning and even specialization.
Right, because tech never stands still. What kind of paths does it suggest?
Well, you could decide to focus more heavily on the front end. Maybe get deeper into UI/UX design principles, making things not just functional, but beautiful and intuitive. Or explore mobile app development using frameworks like React Native, which lets you use your React skills for mobile.
Interesting. Sticking with the user interface side.
Or you could lean more into the back end. Explore things like microservices, architectures, breaking large applications into smaller, independent services. Or learn GraphQL, which is an alternative to REST APIs. Or get really deep into cloud services and APIs from AWS or Google Cloud.
Okay, digging deeper into the engine room.
And of course, you can continue your full stack growth. Learn technologies like TypeScript, which adds static typing to JavaScript for better code quality and catching errors early. Or frameworks like Next.js, which builds on React and adds features like server-side rendering. Or explores serverless architectures, which can simplify deployment and scaling for certain types of apps.
Wow, so lots of directions you can go even after mastering the basics.
The learning never really stops, which is part of the fun, I think.
So we've covered a huge amount of ground looking at this beginner's roadmap to becoming a full stack developer. If there's one core message to take away, what would you say it is?
I think the roadmap puts it perfectly. Becoming a full stack developer is a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah.
You have to be patient with yourself. And you absolutely do not need to know every single framework and tool out there. It's impossible and unnecessary. The key advice, really, is to focus on building things. Build real projects. Learn by doing. Improve step by step. That's how you make progress.
So for you listening, what does all this mean? What's the real takeaway?
It means that if you follow a structured path like this, if you commit to learning these different layers, the front end, the back end deployment, and crucially, practice by building projects, you gain this incredible ability, the power to create complete working applications from scratch, from just an idea to something people can actually use.
Yeah.
And that capability, that end-to-end understanding, is incredibly empowering. It's what ultimately leads to landing that first developer role and building a really rewarding career.
That's a great way to put it. Well, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. Keep learning, keep building.